So today we're going to talk a little bit about what simplicity means to us here at the Point Church and to us as musicians. And when I think about simplicity, I think about just a lot of different factors when it comes to leading worship, whether it's for me, my instrument on piano, sometimes it's drums, sometimes it's vocals and harmonies, but there's definitely something to be said for keeping things simple. And that's not to say that you can't do all of these fun runs or fills or, whatever it is, but making sure it fits the context of the song that you're playing and also that it's not overpowering anyone else's lane. So
True.
true.
She covered everything.
just in 2 minutes. Weston, I'm gonna let you go first. For you, what do you think simplicity? What do you think that pertains to when it comes to playing lead?
Just letting it breathe. Honestly, I think we could probably both agree to that. Just pick a song, for instance. It's kind of like kind of a mid-tempo song. Let's just say for drums, like you're not always in at the top of the song.
Right.
Every little section. Like that's why there's, I think one of the most notorious parts is like an interlude leading to a bridge. Most of the time it's going to be down, Like for guitar, and I also think simplicity applies to like being an MD because you can always say too much.
Yep.
And I'll say, like, honestly, we got tracks for a reason. We've got God for a reason.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
We do.
Like they're giving cues, and so like why should we kind of override?
Yeah.
Now, for instance, like say somebody hits the wrong note, and you become aware of it, then you just kind of say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. That I don't think is overstepping the simplicity sake.
No, not at all.
I just think it's knowing when to do what.
Yep.
So, and not doing too much.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it's really just about staying in your lane, but also not allowing things to wreck either. And especially for him being an MD, there's times and places for you to say things like him saying about missing a note. The other side, well, it happens a little more than we probably like to admit. But like there's times where if we do get on track or we just get lost in a song, he's good to call out chords whenever we need it. But then once we're back on track, we're back on track.
Mm-hmm.
To me, because I don't know why my brain's like this, but like when I'm playing a song, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like driving down a road. But sometimes, like, have you ever like been driving down a road and you're like talking to a friend and completely miss your turn?
No.
And then
Yeah.
thanks, Weston. To me, it's like that. Like sometimes songs are just so they can be monotonous that I can kind of get in that groove and then just miss where we're going. But all of that to say, knowing when and where you need to do things and you need to kind of be either more vocal or a little bit more extra, time is just as important as what you're playing. I would say for me on the keys, when I think of simple, I did a video with you not too long ago about like how really the entire band is kind of a musical conversation the whole time. And really for acoustics, just kind of straight up chords. I mean, they don't do really anything special unless it's some, like in the beginning of a song, they're, picking and sounding really pretty. But for the most part, when it comes to leads and stuff, I feel like it's lead guitar and piano kind of back and forth. And so for me, for the longest time, I had a terrible in-ear mix. And by that, I don't mean the actual like machine. I mean like me and how I decided to mix it. I just used to have me up in the click.
Same.
And that was...
You calling me out?
I'm really not. But I used to do that. And so I would never hear him. I'd never hear bass. I'd never hear any of the cool things that, was an opportunity either to double or maybe an opportunity for me to just kind of relax and let y'all have the space that you needed in the song. I was so bad about overplaying and still can be a little bit, but being aware of musicians is also a huge thing when it comes to just simplicity in general. And so back to the whole musical conversation thing, for me, being able to hear hear everyone's take on how they want to play the song, whether it's our bass player playing some kind of like really cool feel and giving him the space to do that, whether you're covering a lead part or you came up with some kind of cool something for interludes or maybe the start off the bridge. It's important to hear everyone so you can participate in the conversation without being overbearing. I mean, it's like similar to verbal communication. You don't want to talk over someone. You don't want to interrupt them when they're speaking. It's this free flow of conversation. And actually, if you do it right and you truly do listen to each other, you both can kind of be along, like on the same point. And for us, it'd be like a musical point. Like we both can jump on kind of this same wave. I don't know. I'll probably talk in a lot of metaphors on here, but to me, if I can kind of sense where he's going, he can sense where I'm going, we both can hop on that same wave, and it's even more unified if we're all in that conversation together. There's times I'll double drum fills on the keys. We'll double lead lines together a lot. If Gary has a bass fill, either I'll do it with him if it's not super complicated, or just let him have his moment. But to me, that's a huge key part of simplicity, is just knowing when you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, and letting every instrument have, not like, I wouldn't say like every song, like everyone has to have a moment, but knowing other people, not like knowing it to where you have to play it, but like kind of knowing where everyone fits in the song. I think that's super helpful. And I would say it brings a lot to that topic. So that's what I think of. So
agreed.
What about you for like electric guitar? Like how do you view that in your mind for the lead parts that you're playing?
Yeah, so I first of all, I think primarily in dynamics before I think part specific. 'Cause I'll be honest, like probably let's say in 2019, I was a really, really shy guitar player. Like, I would pull my volume pedal up like halfway because I was like, I'm just afraid I'm going to be too loud in the mix.
Yeah.
Then as you mature, you realize you're not.
You're also not in the mix at all.
You're not even in the mix. Yeah. And so I remember a guitar instructor that I had, and he's like, man, just fully commit to that. And I was like, okay, whatever. But he said, when you're not playing a lead part, make sure that you're swelling. He said, but when everything's full, he said, don't swell because you're not there to play second keys. And I remember being like, and I was like, that's honestly good because, like, you think about it in like a down moment, like you'll be playing something and you've got, pads layered in the back and all that kind of stuff. And so, like, knowing where you are and knowing, like, where I can fit in, in terms of, like, you're playing something real down low, like, I might do some higher inversion swell, something like that. But yeah, when it's time to play the part, you play the part, but you assist when you need to. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I remember, like, goodness, like I would just want to swell all the time because I was like, I know that I'm really good at that. Like, I know I can swell if anything else.
Always swell.
I was like, I can't play a hard lick because I'm too afraid. But yeah, no, I think it's just kind of knowing where everybody else is. And I would also say knowing that when you rehearse during the week, we're rehearsing with something that's already pre-recorded. It's good to have that as a basis.
Yep.
But when you show up, like on a Thursday or Sunday, there's not been a single time that I've ever showed up on a Thursday or a Sunday where somebody's not playing something different than what was recorded.
Yeah, that's true.
And
whether intentional or not.
And so then therefore it's kind of like you realize in those situations, well, the part that I was playing and where I was playing it at doesn't sound as good and it doesn't cut through the mix anymore. And so you got to learn to adjust on the fly. And so honestly, I know that's kind of like drinking out of like a fire hydrant, but like I feel like that also plays into the part of simplicity,
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people too. I think I did a video not too long ago about playing simple, and there was kind of this understanding that if you play simple, you can't play creative. And I know that there's some musicians that, and we have a couple on our stage that will play near, like, I would say 95% of exactly what the song is calling for their part, especially drums, which is a good thing. But for me, I'm just not gonna do it. I don't have no beef with people that do it. Now, lead lines, I definitely will, but for me, it's an opportunity to kind of have my own creative license. But at the same time, too, creativity doesn't mean busy all the time. Like, you can be incredibly creative and it be super simple and it still serve the moment. And I see a lot of that too, like with patches. Some of the patches that I play with, they do the work for you most of the time, and I'm sure that you can vouch for that with all the effects you have going on in your guitar. But a lot of skilled musicians are ones that are not going to show out, and it's because they've really captured the idea and put to practice the idea of simplicity. But that's what makes them so good. That's why people love them, is because they play their part and they are in the pocket and on the money, but they're not they're just not doing too much.
Yeah.
And so it always bothered me because I used to have that train of thought myself where if I was playing simply, then I sounded boring, or I sounded like I didn't know what I was doing, or like I just started playing piano 3 days ago. And so like it would make me angry because I'm like, I just don't want to play simple. I want to play all the things that I know in this one song and like fit it in there somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not the sign of a I don't want to say a true musician. You're a musician regardless of whether you play super busy or not, because we all have strengths and weaknesses. But it's a sign of mature musicianship is just knowing when you fit and when you don't, when to lay back and when to rip a nice noodle. What do you call it? Like a lick, or
I mean, sure.
I don't all these music terms. I don't
Rip
know.
a new one.
Ready?
I don't know.
When you get to rip a new one on the
That's
guitar.
Southern for y'all that don't know the South.
Can you imagine if we just like started giving them random words, pretending like that's the
Dad
lingo?
gum. I saw. Okay, this is off topic, but I was coming through Starbucks and there was this guy. He was walking in. He had a hat on. He had it on backwards. It said "Dad gum." I was like, I gotta find out where
You
he
did-
got
it was it
Did
a
I ask
trucker
him?
hat?
No. Huh?
Did I ask him?
No, it was like a baseball cap.
Huh.
He had on skinny jeans, so I
We should
knew
both
he
get
knew what
one
was
and
up.
wear them on Sunday.
Dad gum.
And we're fired. That's awesome. I love that. Maybe we should make hat merch. We haven't even
True.
dropped one singular episode yet.
No, could this be a comedy podcast? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
honestly,
Comedy and merch.
in Jesus. Amen.
That too.
Merch and
I
musicianship.
did not forget about Jesus. I promise.
Anyways, but yeah, just knowing where you fit, knowing how to play simply, but also knowing that it's not boring. Simple is never boring. And I used to think that, but over the years I kind of learned that, when you play too busy, it just sounds really muddy, and that's just not good for anybody.
No,
So
it's not. Thank you.
for you, I know we talked about lead guitar. We've talked a little bit about keys and also just all the instruments and their little musical conversation. But for you as an MD, you elaborated just a little bit in the beginning, but I want you to go a little bit further. How, if someone's watching and they are an MD and they're trying to really perfect their craft of being an MD, describe what would be too much, describe what would be too little, and then give us like a good middle of the road that would fit into the topic of simplicity.
The first thing that comes to mind, and this is going to sound really harsh, but you have to be willing to call out people. Like, I mean, not from the stage. Unless that's your speed. But like, you got to be willing to call out, okay, I know we all have flaws and mistakes that we make during like a, Sunday, but I'm saying like something that's consistent and then it's really throwing everybody off. It's your job to address it. And of course I know there's a lot of, not necessarily like debate, but like kind of clouded, like the worship leader's responsibility versus like the MD's responsibility. Honestly, and I think that all comes down to the relationship you have with your worship leader. But yeah, I would say honestly, you got to be able to address things when they need to be addressed. And so I would say that plays a part in keeping it simple. Like I said, like if you're up there like just calling out stuff just because you can doesn't mean you necessarily should. Like I think about the technology we have, like for instance, like with ProPresenter, a lot of churches now, we've got chords on the back wall, and so therefore it's like you can call out certain things there, but that's a reminder. And a lot of like, musicians will have like iPads, charts, all that kind of stuff. And so then it's like, if we're missing something, there's a bigger problem, but anyway, I would say I'm the MD that wants to lean more into the spontaneous moments where there's really no sign of direction. You can kind of be that direction. Like let's just say like for us and our church, like at the very end, usually altar is what I think about the most, or at the end of the main worship set, like 9 times out of 10, we really don't know where we're going to go. You know what I mean?
Especially when our pastor comes up, because he's real good about throwing a wrench in the plans. And if you're from the point and watching this, I'm sure you can type amen because you know him. But that definitely is most of our spontaneous moments. Kind of either we're finishing up the third song with him going into the sermon and he just really likes the moment and wants to go back in it, or it's Alter with the spontaneous moments.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I think that also comes into like, I know I'm getting off topic, but who cares? But I think that that's why, honestly, the worship leader, because I would say like the MD position is not something that's like brand new, but it's more new than like the worship leader position. So I think it's understand those roles and responsibilities. Anyway, I think it's honestly like the MD, the worship pastor, and the pastor having a great relationship with one another.
absolutely.
Like I think that that's the biggest key. And like a lot of pastors, like senior pastors, they don't really know what, you know, an MD's responsibility is. And I think we've gotten to the point now, like me and the pastor have formed such a good relationship that he'll come up and he'll give me a cue in terms of where he's feeling like he wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore I'm able to communicate that to everybody else. I think having that relationship is one of the biggest benefits to, like, you know, knowing where to go and how to get there.
For sure.
So, but anyway, keep it simple. How do you keep it simple? Say less. Say more in times where the tracks aren't saying anything. Like I said, we have God for a reason. Chorus, this and this and this. Like, this is going to sound harsh too. I'm not being harsh, guys.
Just say it.
But like, it's not an MD's job to give music lessons during a Thursday or Sunday.
That's
like,
very
you
true.
should show up because you have the songs just like I have the songs.
Yep.
And you should be showing up, knowing your stuff. And if there are things that need to be adjusted, that's when an MD steps in. But like, you should know your stuff before you come in. And honestly, I'll say we're really blessed here. We rarely ever have that problem.
I was just thinking
Like,
that myself.
all of our musicians show up, and like sometimes they know way more than I do. And so that's good though, because that makes like my job much easier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, a lot of churches. That's what I was gonna say. Like, you gotta. It's just about, you know, who your musicians are and all that stuff. But it's to encourage self-rehearsal before you show up. I remember
Absolutely.
a college professor of mine said that like, rehearsal shouldn't be where you come in and start to learn the songs. Like, it should be a pre-run through, as if people are about to walk through the doors.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so I think when you approach it with that kind of like pre-preparation in mind, I think it makes it a lot easier for sure.
I think too, and we could probably dive into this in another episode because there's a lot to say about it, but each of our musicians have a different type of personality, and I'm sure y'all know musicians can be quite finicky and sometimes divas, depending. And I'll claim the diva position. I can be that sometimes myself.
You
but
happen to say that as I was shaking my head. This is not towards her.
I appreciate the vote of confidence. But they all have a different type of, like, I think of our bass player, Gary. He's my uncle. He came from a predominantly gospel background. And so the way he plays, and he plays incredibly modern now. So he's transformed his playing over time. But there's like simple licks or like tendencies to play passing chords for him on keys or bass, where if the song isn't calling for a passing chord, he's quick to do it just because that's how he's done it all of his life. And so I think, first of all, knowing your people and knowing how they accept criticism, and how your job being how you can deliver it in a way that's not pointing them out, but also encouraging them to maybe be more cognizant of how they're playing or what they're playing and getting us all on the same track. Weston's good about not specifically calling people out, but most of the time we have to go through something else. We're like, sorry, guys. Like, we're claiming it. But knowing their personalities and knowing how to deliver critique, delivering any kind of difficult information, that's important. But also knowing, like, where they're coming from, kind of what music they're used to, which most of us are, like, very modern worship anyways, but, like, even learning new stuff. Even like having, for us on worship staff, and we are also kind of the creative side of the worship staff. I don't know what our job is, to be honest, but I think that is part of it. But like, I guess knowing, we don't just know what we're looking for, but we kind of know how to explain it in a way that is effectively communicated to the people on stage. So like a cymbal wash for the long, and I'll put myself on the stand. Like for the longest time, I understood the concept of a cymbal wash, but there's times I understand concepts and I don't know how to execute them in a way that sounds the same. And like I was almost, this is very specific, but I was playing them like on the quarter note. And the idea of a cymbal wash is to literally just like wash it, like you just
like a car.
literally, like, I mean, it's like nonstop. And so for the longest time I didn't understand that. And there was one time, and he wasn't even delivering any kind of critique, he just asked me to play it a little bit different, and I think that's for me when it clicked. And he wasn't saying, hey, you suck, do it this way, but he was more saying like, try it this way, or this is how I've seen other people do it, maybe that's helpful for you. But just being able to, first of all, having the relationship with the musicians, the fact that they are your friends is incredibly helpful, and it becomes more of a conversation than it is like a directive to them. And especially if it's more on the critique side than it is whatever else. But voicing it like a friendly suggestion other than like, hey, you're an idiot.
Here's the thing. I think of an MD that this was before I was an MD. So I was just a guitar player. And this MD, in the middle of service, he was like, he looked at me, he's like, hey, and this is nothing we had rehearsed. And we were in the middle of the song, tracks were playing, so it wasn't like it was anything off the cuff. He's like, hey, play this this little run with me real fast. And it was coming up, and I was like, I don't even know what run you're talking about. And he's like, I forgot what he called out. It was in scale degree. It was like 7-1, blah, blah, whatever. And I didn't get it because it was just like, it's time to do it. And like, obviously threw me off, threw everybody else off. And then he wanted to do it again. And I looked at him because I was waiting for him to call it out. And he's like, fine, don't even play it. And I'm like, okay. I cry. I'm just kidding. I didn't cry. But I was like, that's not, I remember thinking in that moment, like, that's not a good way to like lead your people.
No.
And if there ever is an incident where you're like, you want one of, the musicians to do something different, or like they're just missing something constantly, I learned that it's best to pull them aside and don't do it from the stage. Be like, hey,
Absolutely.
I was going to ask, so that little part that you're playing, and then navigate that conversation and do it with grace.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think, not that musicians are kids, but you got to handle it with kid gloves. Facts. Facts or no facts.
That's got to be the quote of the whole podcast right there.
I don't even remember what I said.
With kid gloves.
Yes.
I like that. Anyways, keep it simple. Simplicity is not boring. We love simplicity around here, but there's a lot to say about it, and you can still be creative while doing it. Honestly, I feel like we could do a part 2 to this episode with how much, like, it infiltrates like every single thing that we do on stage. But
yes, just keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Big facts, no printer.
No cap. How does she do it? I'm trying to remember this old TikTok. No cap, facts, no printer. Copy, no paste. It was something. So
I just know like big facts, no printer.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Say it again.
Big facts, no printer.
Keep it simple.
Keep it.